Shetudarbanamarjanam Bhavamahatadagni Nirvapanam Shreya Karmavachandrika Vitaranam Vidravanujivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Punamritasvadanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakadi Bahuda Nija Sarva Shakti Tritarpika Niyamika Smaranena Kala Nitardishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Vidvisham Nihajanina Durvaga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhisuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitramba Jagatisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Sware Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahaitaki Sai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavambuda Kripaya Navapada Pankaja Sitaduli Sadrisham Vachintaya Nayanam Galadashrudaraya Vanadam Gadada Rudaragira Pulakarni Chitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Yugainam Nimishena Chakshusha Prabhrisaitam Sunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Vidahena Me Aslishyava Padaratam Punasvimam Adarsanam Marmahatam Korotuva Yata Tadava Vidatavilam Pato Mat Prananatastu Saeva Napara Vacho Vegam Manasa Krono Vegam Jiva Vegam Udarapasta Vegam Etan Vegan Yo Visaheta Dira Sarvam Abhimam Prithivim Sasishat Achahara Prayasascha Rajalpo Niyamagraha Janasangaschalayam cha Sadbir Bhaktir Vinashyati Utsahan Nischayat Daryat Tatat Karma Pavartanat Sangatvagat Sato Vite Sadbir Bhaktir Prasidhyati Dadati Pratigrinati Guyamatyati Krichyati Bhokte Bhojayate Chaiva Sadvija Priti Lakshanam Vajnatamanandasya Janajana Satkaya Chakshur Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Rajkalpatu Visha Kripasindavi Vacha Patitanam Pamadevyo Vaishnavijana Namaha. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Tonight we'll continue with our discussion of Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadesamrta, specifically dealing with the verses, the 5th and 6th verse, the 5th explaining the different kinds of devotees and how we should see them and relate with them. And then the 6th verse, which will be the primary focus of this evening's discussion, deals with maintaining spiritual vision in our relationship with Krishna's devotees. So, touch back on the 5th and discuss just a couple more points there. So the 5th verse, one who takes Krishna Nam just once by calling out, "O Krishna," is a neophyte devotee, Kanista Adhikari. One should consider him to be his family member and silently respect him. One who, fully understanding the principles of Diksha, has accepted initiation from a qualified guru and performs bhajan of Bhagavan in accordance with Vaishnava conventions, is an intermediate devotee, Madhyamadakari. One should respect such a devotee who is endowed with the correct understanding of reality and illusion by offering pranam unto him and so forth. One who is conversant with the science of bhajan, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vaishnava scriptures, and who performs exclusive bhajan of Sri Krishna, is a Mahabhagavat, due to his undeviating absorption in Krishna. The pure heart of such a devotee is free from faults, such as the tendency to criticize others. He is expert in bhajan, meaning that he mentally renders service, manasa seva, to Shri Radha Krishna's pastimes that take place during the 8 segments of the day, Astakaliya Leela. Knowing him to be a topmost devotee, whose heart is established in the particular mood of service to Sri Radha Krishna, for which one aspires, and who is also affectionately disposed towards oneself, one should honor him by offering dandavat pranam, pranipata, making relevant inquiry, pariprashna, and rendering service, seva, with great love. So we're seeing here in Rupa Goswami's definitions or characteristics of the various Vaishnavas, the Kanishta, the Madhyam, and the Uttama, a wide range. From the very beginning of just having once uttered the holy name, having once in a determined mode said, Krishna, please, you save me. I'd like to enter into some spiritual life and leave this current environment behind. So, from the very beginning, Kanishta, starting to the one who's made a firm determination to formalize that goal, to formalize that aspiration that begins with simply an acknowledgement of the Supreme Lord through his holy name, to an acceptance of that holy name as the ultimate objective in one's life, and formalizing that objective through initiation, accepting Diksha from the bona fide spiritual master, and working towards that goal, gradually advancing through the stages of bhajana kriya, anartha nivritti, nista, ruchi, sakti. So this is the Madhyamadakari. He's made a firm commitment, and to that devotee, we offer our pranams. He has actually come to the position of, even though he may still be in some way hampered due to prior conditioning, still his objective is firmly established. So the Kanishta, we accept him, we mentally honor him, we accept him as pointed out in the English translation, as a family member. He's part of the group. We invite him in to the association of the sadhus, and respect him for having recognition of the significance of his spiritual self, and having some appreciation for the Lord and the Lord's devotees. Maybe very little in the beginning, but it's the beginning. So then we come to the Uttama Adhikari, and in this English translation, what is being presented is that picture of an Uttama Adhikari who is what? Fully dedicated. There's nothing else that he has any interest in other than entering into and serving Krishna in his Vraj Leela. So he's fully competent in that that mental service. How do they put it? Conversant with the science of bhajan, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam, and performs exclusive bhajan. That's what his life's all about, just doing this bhajan. Now we can see, of course, knowing the nature of the Uttama Adhikari and the nature of such a personality making himself available to the Vaishnava community, he comes down from that platform of Uttama Adhikari, and he will give some direction. So the full gamut is being presented here in Rupa Goswami's verse, from the Kanishta to the Uttama Adhikari. And the way we, and when I say we, I will take the mood of what's being presented in the verse, the devotees that are practicing, the Madhyamadhikaris. So the middle devotees, how do we deal with these different classes of devotees, and how do we recognize them? Now the Madhyamadhikari, he has some discrimination. The Kanishta Adhikari, he has little discrimination. So little is his discrimination, as brought out in some of the commentaries in relationship to this verse, that he's not able to distinguish between himself and the Madhyamadhikari. We're devotees. I'm a devotee, you're a devotee. You know, it's all good. Okay. But there's certainly a distinction. The Madhyamadhikari, he's gradually advancing in devotional practice, and the anarthas are diminishing. And he has an intent in his practice to advance from unsteady to steady practice, from steady practice to a taste for the practice, from that taste of ruchi to a real affection for the Supreme Lord that brings out his eternal serving and loving mood. The Kanishta, he's not able to perceive this yet. Often the analogy is given of a mango. Mango has different stages of ripeness. So we have the green mango, we have the ripening mango, and we have the fully, succulent mango that's fallen from the tree. And so we look at these, we can look and draw a comparison there between the Kanishta Adhikari, green. I think that's also used in some other, greenhorn. So this is not an unheard of concept, even in the Western world. So he's a little green. Then the Madhyam, he's in different degrees according to his advancement, different degrees of ripeness. You may see some spots of real nectar coming now. A little green over here, but on this side where the sun's shining, when he's in the sunshine of his guru, he's radiant. And sometimes a little bad association, it gets in that, and then the greenness comes out. So little of all that is there in the Majjhimadhikari. But the Majjhimadhikari has some discrimination. He's able to see, and he's able to distinguish. He makes a real effort to extend a helping hand to the innocent, to associate with advanced devotees and serve his contemporaries, and he avoids those that are inimical. So he discriminates. And his discrimination is twofold. He discriminates because he knows he's not fully ripe yet. He has some knowledge. So therefore, he has to take care of who he associates with. And when he associates with those that are innocent, he associates in order to give them Krishna consciousness, not to associate with them in a loving way, in the way that's been pointed out in the last verse of Upadesamrta, exchanging gifts, accepting gifts, giving gifts, inquiring confidentially, giving confidential knowledge, accepting and offering prasadam. Those loving exchanges are in the family. So for the innocent, he reaches out, but he doesn't reach out so much that he allows himself to become influenced by those innocent people that are still conditioned to such an extent that their association can be harmful, because he's still weak. Different degrees of weakness, but the weakness is there until one comes fully to Bhav. There's still a possibility, and great care is taken, especially when it comes to those people who are very materialistically inclined, and those people who are have profound misconceptions regarding the best objective of spiritual life. So the bhakta has no interest to adopt or associate with the Jnani who's simply interested in merging into the Supreme, into the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. His interest is not there, and he's careful to avoid that association, as even more so than he would avoid the materialist association. And of course, he can recognize those characteristics of the Uttama Adhikari. Primary characteristic is he's exclusively involved in devotional practice. He recognizes, the Madhyam does, due to his discrimination, he may not fully understand how exclusively the Uttama is involved. He doesn't know, though. He's not yet advanced enough to know what's happening when one is engaged in exclusive bhajan. But he can distinguish externally the characteristics you can see in his character, and the nature of his practice. He has no other objective. And the Madhyamadakari, he still may have other objectives, may come along from time to time and sway him a little bit. And he has to pull his mind back, or he has to pull himself back. Dependent, here again, there's all grades. We're talking about a wide swath of sadhana bhakti the Madhyamadakari is engaged in from the beginning, when he finally makes the commitment and dedicates himself through initiation, all the way up to becoming fully aware of his spiritual prospect, a sakti. And awareness comes, and then one enters into bhava. Who can imagine? But he can see that in the Uttama, that he is engaged in this level of bhajan, and, firmly fixed. And if he's kind enough to maintain that internally, but externally give us his association, we're very much appreciative of that in every way. So wide gamut from the beginning to the Uttama-adhikari, and for the Madhyamadakari, that fine discrimination is there as to how to associate with those devotees. And it's interesting to note that when we look at the verse and all the commentaries here, Bhakti Vinods, Bhakti Siddhantas, and even Bhakti Rakshak Sridhardev Goswami, in commenting on this verse, they all bring out, in relationship to the Uttama-adhikari, the fact that the way he's approached is according to Krishna's directive in Bhagavad Gita as to the acceptance of the spiritual master. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jannastattva-darsana. That personality is the bona fide spiritual master. That is where you seek that guidance from that Uttama-adhikari. And in the commentary on this verse by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada, he mentions the same thing. He mentions it in a little different way. He says, well, because he sees, of course, in the preaching mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there may be time when those that aren't fully Uttama are so enthused as Madhyams that they may accept disciples. And even Kanistas may be illusioned to think they can be gurus. It happens. So Prabhupada says in his commentary on this verse, he says, one can accept them as a guru, but they're not going to advance very well under their insufficient guidance. Doesn't mean there won't be any guidance. There'll be some guidance, but it won't be enough guidance. It will be insufficient. It may be sufficient for a period of time. And if it's a Madhyamadakari and he's advancing in his service and he's more advanced, he may advance in a way that his initiate, his disciple, advances behind him, and it's a working arrangement. But as I said, when we look at this verse, we look at what is the characteristic of the Uttama-adhikari and how do we relate to the Uttama-adhikari, the commentaries all mention this is who you accept initiation from. So it's a high bar as far as who should accept disciples. And we'll leave that there for this evening. But care should be taken on both sides, both for the aspiring and also those that are considering accepting disciples. They should be aware of what the acharyas in our line consider an acceptable position from which one can accept disciples. And it is the Uttama position. And the Uttama's position is as outlined in this verse by Rupa Goswami. It's real high. He's fully engaged, cent percent in bhajan. He's fully immersed in that level of devotional dedication, full time, nothing else. That said, sometimes there's a war. And my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he was interested in a very broad-based campaign for spreading Krishna consciousness. And some statements are attributed to him. Work now, samadhi later, things like that. But we need to always see those in perspective. And we always need to see such a broad-based preaching campaign as introducing Krishna consciousness to the Western world can be conducted by a very empowered personality, and to see those instructions and never take them out of context. Who was Prabhupada speaking to? People that were in the front lines, young in life, young in devotional life. So work now, samadhi later. It doesn't mean there's no samadhi. It doesn't mean never samadhi. It means samadhi when you're no longer green. In the beginning, you still have some growing to do. So until you grow into your full greenness and you can start to see some manifestations of a ripening, work now is good. But it doesn't mean that is a permanent fixture. At a certain point, we're meant to become very acquainted with all Sambandha Gyan, and we're meant to take the helm. I'm sorry, that is the fact. For all that's given to the disciple, all that he receives, it becomes his burden to fully grow into the ripeness that's necessary to spread Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. And if he, for whatever reason, even until that full ripening is realized by him, then he's in a sangha of devotees. When he sees somebody that is significantly well situated and is that Uttama Adhikari, then he helps that personality. That's the proper method of the devotee that recognizes he's not fully ripe yet. He knows he's not an Uttama Adhikari. He knows that he's not engaged in exclusive meditation internally on Krishna's eightfold daily pastimes. He should be able to recognize that. He'll know if he's doing it. If he sees that he's not doing it, then he should recognize I'm not fully ripe. Unless it's an emergency situation where there is no other personality to reach out, and to assist people. If that is not the situation, but there is somebody that is fully ripe, who's an Uttama, then he should assist him gracefully. That's the proper mentality I'm speaking of. So, different calibers of devotees. And now we come to the next verse. Verse 6. It is forbidden to view the transcendental Vaishnavas with material vision. Read the English translation. Devotees situated in this material world should not be viewed with material vision. In other words, one should not consider them to be ordinary conditioned souls. The imperfections visible in their natures, such as birth in a low caste, harshness, lethargy, and so forth, and the imperfections visible in their bodies, such as ugly features, disease, deformities, and so on, are precisely like the appearance of bubbles, foam, and mud in the Ganges. Despite such apparent pollution in the water of the Ganges, she retains her nature of liquefied transcendence. Similarly, the self-realized Vaishnavas always exist on the transcendental plane, and one should not attribute material defects to them. Okay. So how do I apply this? Well, now, do I apply this to all three classes that Rupa's just mentioned equally? Now, I've been told that, here's some discrimination you need to develop as a Madhyamadikari, the fine discrimination to know who is the Kadista, who is the Madhyam, who is the Uttama, and how to relate to them. The Kadista I'm accepting was a family member, and I'm mentally honoring him. The Madhyamadikari, who's made a firm commitment and has dedicated his life and his energies to advancement in spiritual life, no matter where he is in the practice of advancing sadhana bhakti. He has enough faith to accept the guru, Adao Shraddha Tata Sadhu. He's accepted the sadhu. Ata Shraddha Tata Sadhu. Bhajana Kriya. He's engaged in Bhajana Kriya. Anartha Nivritti. So he's on these different, he's on the path of sadhana bhakti, and he's advancing. Anartha Nivritti is coming. Anarthas are dissipating gradually, even to the point that, as Vishwanath pointed out, by the time one has come to the stage of asakti, where his spiritual prospect is becoming apparent to him, as he approaches that stage, prarabdha karma has now dissipated. The sinful reactions and those tendencies for sinful life are now gone. So it's an amazing thing to look at the way Vishwanath presents this progressive advancement, and how, aparads, they can come all the way to the time that we actually have the darshan of the Supreme Lord. They can affect our devotional practice. But uh, those reactions from the kleshas, from sinful activity, and our tendencies towards material life, those are dissipated in the life of the sadhaka as he comes to a budding of an understanding of his spiritual position. So here we're told not to see the devotee materially, to not see even his character flaws, what to speak of his material flaws, what we see in the material body, or his social flaws, what we see in his background, his birth. Not everybody is born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Some people were born in the jungle. So it's a wide difference between the silver spoon, or of course, when we look at Vedic culture, the Brahmin who's born in the Suchi, everything in his life is so good, so well situated, so intelligent, so free of passion and ignorance, well situated in the mode of goodness from birth, very clean, honest, upstanding. So Rupa Goswami is saying here, when we look to the devotees, we do not see materially. Now, do we distinguish in looking at the devotees? Well, he's a kanista, so therefore I can see that he still has flaws, and I can fault him for it. I can find fault in him. It's okay. He's just a kanista. And here's the Uttama, and I can see his characteristics. I can't find any fault there. Do we discriminate? And truly, it's not in our best interest to make such a discrimination. A mango is a mango is a mango. The Krishna, from the time the devotee says, Krishna, please, you pick me up, Krishna's taken charge. Krishna sees him as not different from himself. It's a hard vision to have if you're not Krishna, but we're trying to develop a culture, and Krishnaize our vision. So we have to take on and see through the eyes of Shastra. Shastra's chakshush. So when we hear Rupa Goswami say, we do not see devotees. If we see these flaws, do not let your mind go in the wrong direction. Do not look upon those flaws. And when you read what Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami writes in relationship to this verse, he says, when we see those faults, what to speak of pointing them out, just when we see those faults, we should recognize we are seeing those faults, we are drawing them to us. So those faults we are perceiving in the devotee of Krishna, by seeing them, we are drawing those to us, to our character. So it is not good for us at all to see these faults. In anyone, I mean, what to speak of the consciousness of Uttama Adhikari, he doesn't even distinguish between who's a devotee and who's not a devotee. And we have some examples there. And again, we come back to when we look at examples, when we look to the ideal conduct of the Vaishnava community, the Sangha of devotees, we look to those perfected devotees who were with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were perfected devotees in showing us a sadhaka deha. So they're acting like devotees, but they're perfected eternal associates of the Lord. The Lord comes, he brings his eternal associates. So what's the contact? Sri Chaitanya, he led the way. And he pointed out in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami allowed us entrance into the mentality of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the leper, Vasudev, he had leprosy, not just regular leprosy. This was like a very severe case. And I'm not familiar with the disease, but apparently living entities had taken up residence in his body. And he didn't mind. He didn't mind that. If they fell out, he would say, well, need to get back home. So he would reinstate them in their homestead on his body without any concern. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his village and left. And he was just devastated. I missed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He came, I knew he was coming, the Lord of my life. All I wanted to do in this life is to have a vision of him. That would have been the perfection. Somehow I missed him. So he was lamenting to such an extent that he drew the affection of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu turned around and came back to town. He turned around and came back and embraced him. Yes, no, you didn't miss me. Here I am. And in embracing him, he immediately was cured. He immediately received the most beautiful forms. And also in Chaitanya Leela, we have Sanatana Goswami coming from Vrindavan to Puri to meet with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And during his trip, he took some bad water, and immediately he became covered with sores, pustules, very well, it's hard to even describe that a devotee would have to suffer like this. What to speak of Sanatana Goswami, pus and blood oozing from his body. But he's not that body. And that's the point here. We have to see this is not what we see. How did Lord Chaitanya? Lord Chaitanya, when he saw him, Sanatana was like, I'm not going to see Lord Chaitanya. I can't. From a distance, maybe. But if every time he's seen me in the past, he's always embraced me, I can't have him touch this body. But Lord Chaitanya, he knew his thing. He was thinking, well, if Lord Chaitanya tries to touch, I can fall under the wrath cart, because I can't subject my Lord to that. And again, Lord Chaitanya embraced his devotee, and the devotee was immediately relieved. And Krishnadas Kaviraj explains there in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Lord was thinking, I am being tested here. So it is sadhaka deha. Krishna is showing us when the test comes, pass the test. Don't look upon any devotee with any psychological difficulties, character difficulties, social economic difficulties, or physical difficulties. uh, according to those circumstances. Those circumstances have come and will be gone in a heartbeat. It's one lifetime. And they're serving Krishna. How great is that? So, yes.
But what about a devotee or so-called devotee who's engaging in service and at the same time harming other devotees? Physically harming them, or even psychologically harming them purposefully.
Again, we can look to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was being criticized within the village for eating too much. So he immediately cut his eating in half, and the devotees neglected to the point that personality finally left. So we would say, well, I mean, they were just livid. You are hurting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by your criticism. He won't eat. He's given up his eating, and so they were very indifferent to that devotee, to that personality, who was what you say, so-called devotee. What devotee would do harm to another devotee? Well, he wouldn't be much of a devotee to begin with. He would be, a reflection of a devotee at best, maybe in the guise of a devotee. We neglect, and we also, in certain instances, we take up our bow and arrows, and we, especially if there's some attack. So it's not that devotees are just, pacifists. We're not pacifists. We don't go looking for trouble. We try to help everybody to the, as much as possible. But no, there's no acceptance of those kind of personalities. That's not devotional service. But again, there's some extreme extension of mercy when it comes to the kanista. He may just be so, so conditioned. But you're talking about physical abuse, mental abuse. We're very, when we see Krishna's devotees hurt, we take that to heart. We do the needful. Pacifism is not what we're about. We're about Krishnism. So I've spoken for some time. It's almost my time. Are there any other questions? Since we've started questions. Thank you very much for your association. Hare Krishna. Why don't you come to Krishna?